Finish the job. I'm still alive. So basically, I'm wondering if, by the way, the picture is obviously from um, Google Images, and it takes place in the scene where Suki, Sokka, and Toph are congratulating Aang on defeating Ozai, and then Suki wonders if Aang, you know, got rid of Ozai completely, and then Ozai mentions that he's still alive because Aang just took Ozai's bending away. And as we know, Ozai went to jail and stayed there for the rest of his life. Obviously, in the comics, Ozai tries to do a little bit of manipulation, but eventually it all falls flat. And the last we see of Ozai is his ex-wife Ursa basically telling him off and telling him to what a loser he is, and he just that's just the end of Ozai's story, as far as we know. So obviously we can assume that Ozai stayed in prison for the rest of his life. But did he die in prison? And by that I mean, could Ozai still be alive during the Legend of Korra? Obviously, even if he were still alive during the Legend of Korra, he would still be in jail. And so let's think of a few ideas. So Ozai was born in like 55 AG, and by the way, AG is after genocide, meaning after Air Nomad genocide. So it's kind of like BCE or CE or BC or AD, but except in the Avatar universe. So BG is before genocide, AG is after genocide. So Ozai was born in 55 AG, and he was defeated in 100 AG. So he was about 45 years old when he went to prison. Now, the Legend of Korra is about 70 years after Avatar: The Last Airbender, and obviously there's like book two is like I believe 1 year after book one, and then book three is right after book two, and then book four is 3 years after book three. So Ozai would be about, give or take, I guess, less than 120 years old if he were still alive. And remember, Bumi was 112 years old. King Bumi was of Omashu was 112 years old. Avatar Kyoshi was 230 years old. Fire Lord Sozin was 102 years old. And so people do live long. First of all, they live long in real life. Like, there's actually people who are still alive even though they're really old. Like Jimmy Carter is 98 years old. There's a woman in South Korea who was born 1904, so she's like 118 years old. And there was a John McCain's mother, Roberta McCain, who was 108 years old. And so, yeah, people do live for a long time in real life. But in fake life, like the Avatar universe, that's obviously fake life. In the Avatar universe, people live even longer. So Ozai could theoretically still be alive during the Legend of Korra. And like I said, if he is still alive, it's totally irrelevant because he's in prison and he's pretty much useless. Like, he doesn't have firebending, he's just there. So the reason I bring this up, though, is because I think Ozai deserves to still be alive. And what do I mean by that? Obviously, Ozai is terrible, horrible, awful Fire Lord. That's why I think he should stay and suffer in prison for as long as possible. See, it's not just good for him to be out of misery. His real punishment should be staying in prison. So Ozai is miserable in that prison cell, so he should stay miserable for 70 plus years, 74 years or so. Because Ozai is terrible, and Ozai should stay in prison. And the longer he is in prison, the more miserable he is. So I know this is probably never going to be addressed, but I hope Ozai is still alive during the time of Legend of Korra, and I hope he stays alive for a long time and just lives in misery for all the terrible things that he did. Maybe they can get him a cell with Zahir. Maybe they could put him in the same room with Zahir, and they can, have fun together or something. I don't know. By the way, does Korra know how to take bending away? I mean, I'm guessing she doesn't, because she knows how to give bending back to people who have lost it. But I don't know if she knows how to take bending away. But if she can, maybe it's a good idea to have her take Zahir's bending away. And while we're on that topic, I really think they should have had Aang take away Azula's bending, because she's very unstable and insane. So if Azula had her bending taken away by Aang, then that would have been a good thing. And of course, there's a lot of areas which Legend of Korra never addressed, like, is Suki still alive? And they, of course, mentioned that Sokka is in fact dead. We don't know how or when, but he is dead by the time of Legend of Korra. Um, Now, is Ursa still alive? I mean, she could be. Like I said, she would also be like under 120 years old. And of course, Zuko's younger sister. We would love to see her again. Was a great character. I'm talking about Zuko's younger sister that Ursa had with her second husband, Ikem. Um, I'm assuming probably Hakoda and Paku and Akana, though those guys are all gone. I mean, we don't see them around, so I'm guessing they're not around. Um, yes, so those are my ideas. Who knows? I hope Ozai's still alive and suffering in prison for his horrible crimes against humanity.